Welcome to the intersection of faith and culture. This is the A.R. Bernard Show, and I'm your host, A.R. Bernard. We've got a very special guest today. His name is Ray Chu. Ray has had an illustrious career as a music director, producer, and composer. He was a member of the Saturday Night Live band in the early 80s, and since then, his stardom has only shot higher. He went on to become musical director for legendary shows, including American Idol and It's Showtime at the Apollo and Rising Star. He directed music for the inaugural ball of President Barack Obama, the Emmys, and the Grammys. He's arranged songs for Diana Ross, Luther Vandross, and Roberta Flack. Currently, he's the music director for ABC's Dancing with the Stars. Please welcome today's brilliant guest, Ray Chu. It is a pleasure to have you on the
pleasure.
program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's start at the beginning, because you had an interesting experience that got you to Saturday Night Live.
Yes, I was a first call session musician. Matter of fact, in this very area, right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. There was a scene that happened during the 70s and 80s where you would have a group of musicians and groups of musicians that would go from different sessions doing jingles. So we would do jingles in the morning and sessions during the evening. And we got to really, it became a wonderful quilt of really high, refined, highly skilled musicians. And from that, a lot of those musicians were chosen to do a lot of TV shows, and I was chosen and asked to do Saturday Night Live, and I was 20 years old, I believe, and it was very fun and very invigorating. Live TV.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. You mentioned Ashford and Simpson when we were talking before the program started. What role did they play?
Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson were my mentors and friends. And they brought me by hand into this wonderful industry, because you, as a musician, you can study and you can really have a wonderful journey as a musician, but being into the business is a whole nother journey in itself. And so you need people that help guide you, give you the right kind of information. And in that case, they brought me by hand into it.
Was it a hard industry to break into? And if so, why? And why at that particular time?
It is. Because it's very competitive, especially here in New York, where you have, and I would liken it to high end sports, mm-hmm. right? People mm-hmm. want to be in the NFL. Well, there are only a certain amount of jobs, and you have many people wanting to do those jobs, and so it's the same thing into the entertainment industry, where you have, a lot of wonderful jobs that are coveted by many. Mm-hmm. And so the competition is high.
80 to 83, you were a band member at SNL, and you were in that environment at a time that Michael Lauren was removed. There were strikes that was going on, but you had the likes of Eddie Murphy, who was 19 years old at the time. You guys were all the same age. Steve Martin, Chevy Chase. What was that like?
It was fun and it was crazy. But when you're young and in that environment, you don't quite know all of the dynamics and all of the consequences. And so a lot of us kind of got, a lot of, in over our heads, so to speak, with the lifestyle. The lifestyle, permits you to stay up late and go to work early and, do kind of crazy things. But what it did was it certainly recognized great talent like Eddie Murphy and those who were able to go on and proceed further. It showed and it demonstrated what, a good, not only good aptitude, but a good merge of talent, skills, and opportunities can do to further career.
Did it challenge your craft? Did it
Absolutely.
force you to take things to another level?
Yeah, live TV is immediate, and so any mistakes would be too. So you have to be able to mitigate anything that may seem like a mistake or error, and that was a teaching class. For anything and anybody doing live TV, you had to know that whatever happened in that moment, you had to find a way to make it either one, not a mistake, or make it very entertaining.
Recover real quick, right? So what was the role of the band? How important was the role of the band?
Well, the music was the soundtrack under the whole show. So we had comedic sketches, and we had, bumpers. We call them bumpers. That's the music going to commercial and coming out of it. And so it always gave a flavor and tone to it. And of course, we start the show with the skit, but then it would always end with the same theme, and it was fun. Yeah.
So it was a lot of pressure, right?
Yes.
A lot of competition.
Absolutely.
And you were watching the competition amongst others, not just the band, but just the cast and the crew of the show itself. How did that affect you? I mean, did it scare you? Did it intrigue you? How did it affect you?
I think I was a little naive to be scared yet, so I was just in it. I think I would liken that to you see these images of when they'll throw a newborn baby into the pool before he gets a chance to be scared. He's swimming, and so that's what it was. Before I had a chance to realize, how impactful this was, I was swimming. So yeah,
you were swimming.
I was swimming.
But you were also watching others.
Yeah,
you had a chance to see Eddie Murphy explode. What was your impression of that? What was that like?
Well, we were kind of in the same experience pond. So while we were doing the show, he was a rising star, and then of course after he left the show, he really exploded into an A-list movie star. But yeah, we were all buddies on the show and having fun, but we were all really focused on the excellence of our craft, which is what brought us there to that point, and which is what would carry us through.
How do you maintain that?
Well, the way I maintain excellence is by not limiting my imagination and to focus on my skills, and knowing that a higher power is guiding me through this and giving me grace and mercy.
Mm-hmm. All right. So who was guiding you?
That's right. God was guiding
Who was guiding you?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I love to impart this on young people. And it is my testimony that I know the value of not only faith, but the embrace of a loving God that will grant you grace and mercy even when you don't deserve it.
That sounds wonderful and preachy,
yeah.
But how does that translate in an environment where, you were surrounded by people who were not necessarily of the faith or of a faith tradition, or maybe they were, but they weren't really practicing it. But you're saying that it influenced you even in that context.
Later on.
Okay. So
it was later on.
Give me the scoop.
In that moment, I was still, young and dumb.
Young and dumb. So what happened? I mean, was there a point that you reflected on your life and the direction that it was going in, and you said, well, wait a minute, I need an anchor for my soul? Did that happen?
Absolutely.
When, where, and why?
It was I guess in the late 80s, and I think I got a little ahead of myself. And ahead of myself is you think that success, which is relative, success, as a 19-year-old, success, making what seemed to be lots of money, and buying cars, and it was lots of money for a 19-year-old. All right. And so I thought, I got the wrong thoughts in my head, and I started acting them out, living a lifestyle and experimenting with drugs and and letting that lead me to places where I shouldn't be. And so with that experience, it carried me to a depth that I really had to have a reckoning with myself and to decide what it is I wanted to do. Now, that decision I didn't make alone. That decision, you make it whatever your lowest point is. So I had a very low point.
How bad did it get?
I was licking the curb, okay, in my life, so to speak. And it's as bad as you may want it to be, or you may even, again, it is relative to whatever experiences you may see, but that brought me to my knees, and it brought me to opening the opportunity to hear this celestial message, this voice, this guiding voice that it basically asked me, and I recognize it as a Jesus Christ moment, right? Mm-hmm. That I felt that it asked me, Ray, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue this, or you want to move on? And at that moment, I said, I'll move on, please help.
But was it because you were failing at your craft, or because you were experiencing something inside that was challenging the life that you were living and the direction that you were going in?
It was both. Yeah.
So you were failing in your craft?
Yeah. I had started living and malfunctioning, showing up late to things, and doing things outside of what the corridor of excellence that I had set up for myself. And then then the calls stopped coming in. And the calls start coming in, and the cupboards start getting bare. And then
feel the economic impact.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I'll share that was again, at a point where I was able to, hear something different other than the echo chamber, which was my own voice before telling me how cool and great I was.
But was there a background in faith as a child, or? Oh, there was some faith foundation.
Yes, yeah. My mother's Baptist.
Okay.
And my father was a Catholic. So we actually had first of all, we had a lot of that kind of influence. That we weren't. One week we'd go to Catholic church, and next week we'd go to Baptist church. And so it was always a lot of different experiences. Sometimes I played in the church, sometimes I just attended. And then, and so I got to know what the systems look like without knowing and feeling what the faith walk.
That's interesting. You had a gift as a musician. You were growing up in a family of faith, even though to faith, but you were playing as a musician. But it was just a job. It was just something you did, you got paid for, but it didn't speak to you in a deep and profound way as it did at this point in the late 80s.
Actually, the music was my guiding beacon. That was where I felt the real spirit of God, because I know that, I experienced that God doesn't necessarily give everybody the same blessings. He'll give you, whatever the provision is for you, and whatever he has for you, he'll give whatever he has for you, and in the time that it needs to affect you most profoundly. So that's what I know. At age 5, I was given the gift of music. And for me, that's all there has been in my system. I hear music all the time. I feel music all of the time. Even right now, I have a rhythm going with this conversation.
That's one of the questions that I wanted to present to you.
Yeah.
What is the process? Because you're not only a musician, you're a writer, you're a composer, and we'll talk about some of the things that you've done. How does it happen? Do you hear something in your mind, in your ear, your heart? I mean, what is the process?
The first thing is that you can either seek an inspiration or one can come to you, or you can just be in the midst of a day and something will affect you
Mm-hmm.
and have you, motivated as such. So it's all three experiences that happen with me. But most of the time in my daily life and in the moments of my life, I'm hearing music or rhythm, or I'm walking to a rhythm, or I'm speaking in a rhythm, and I'm really, reacting to the rhythm of a conversation. But it's all I see it as the metrics of life. I think I see it and feel it as a musical grid. There's a wonderful frequency and tone, and then there's a rhythm pattern to it to some degree. So I recognize patterns and rhythms, and I incorporate that when I'm composing.
So you've done some incredible things, right? Let's talk about what you've written and what you've composed.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful things that I've composed and written. I've written songs for Diana Ross and
Mm-hmm.
and in my own albums and wow, it's a lot of different artists. But some of the things that I enjoy as a composer are writing for film and TV. I do the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade,
Mm-hmm.
and for that, it's been about 9 years, somewhere in there, and I compose about 70% of the music that you hear during the parade. And so a lot of it is music that you may seem as incidental, right? But it's the music that helps drive the flavor and the spirit of the parade. When you hear the parade, all the music that happens during the parade has to be either composed, pre-recorded, or dealt with. The only elements that are live are the live marching bands. Everything else has to be pre-recorded. When we do the parade, I pre-record. Last year I did 230 music cues. All right. So it's 3.5 hours of wall-to-wall music. Every time you hear something, there's music with it.
That you have to map out that whole 3.5 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the solos that are done at different points in the parade?
Yeah, the artistic solos, the artists coming on and doing it, that's pre-recorded as well. Sometimes they will do a live vocal, but the music has to be pre-recorded.
And what do you think? I mean, do you put yourself on the sidelines where the people are and imagine how they're going to experience the float that's coming down the avenue there?
Yeah, I do. Before actually doing the show as a composer and a producer, I enjoyed the parade. So I already knew, what the parade, what it should feel like and the tradition of it. My predecessor, his name was Milt DeLug, and he was the composer and producer for 50 years preceding me. He did it for 50 years.
Wow.
Until he was 93. And so I came in when he was 92 to kind of watch, the methods that he employed doing the parade. And so I felt the tradition of it, and I felt, the flavor of what, the Thanksgiving Day parade should feel like. And it was my job to carry that on. I felt, it was incumbent upon me to make sure that I continued with what it was for. Kids watch it, families watch it, and they want to feel continuum. They want to feel
Right.
like this is something that that always touches you a wonderful place when you watch it.
People have no idea how much work goes into what they tend to hear in the background, influencing them as they're watching the parade, but they have no idea of all the work that goes into it. 3 hours of work.
That's right.
That you're talking about.
And 230 music cues. That's a lot of studio hours, we do some with orchestra, bands, and choirs, and we have to mix it all up and come to this wonderful potpourri of music.
So when you sit there and watch the parade, the final product as it all plays out, how do you feel?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And actually, it's still live. What happens is that all those pre-recorded musical clips have to be loaded into a system that they call it a playback system that is coordinated to the script of the parade. So the announcer is scripted, and he'll say, "Hey, here comes the Snoopy's balloon." And when he says that, we have our script. Excuse me.
That's okay. Keep going.
And when he says that, we have our script, and we have to, excuse me. What's the word? Trigger. Thank you. When he says, "Here comes the Snoopy's balloon," we have to trigger the music for that, and we load up all the music and trigger it live during the broadcast.
So it's not like you create all this and push a button and let it go.
Oh no,
you
we
have to be
live.
Involved throughout the parade itself.
Exactly.
Music has given you a first row seat to multiple aspects of history, including President Barack Obama, first Black president of the United States. You did his inaugural ball. What was that like?
That was one that was personally moving, and then one that I'll have to also credit our director producer, Glenn Weiss, who stopped the rehearsal to say, "Everybody, I want you to drink in this moment and watch the screen," as he was sworn in while we were doing rehearsal. Now that's unusual because when we're rehearsing, everything is, the clock is running. We're trying to squeeze in, 100 pounds of stuff in a 70-pound bag. So the experience of being part of a very historical moment was not something that was past me. I felt it, I knew it, and I was glad to be at the helm of it. This ball, the inaugural ball, was the one that was curated by Barack Obama, and so he selected all the artists. So and he was part of the process of what it should look and feel like. This was the lineup of all lineups. You had,
but is that typical for the president to be that hands-on?
No, it wasn't.
And involved in an inaugural ball?
No, usually they have the chief of staff and everybody else.
Right.
And plus he had 4 or 5 other balls to go to. But this was different because this was his inaugural ball, and it was on ABC prime time. And the guests, Beyonce, Maroon 5, Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige, Stevie Wonder, Sting. It goes on and on. The list was incredible, and it was my task to bring it all together.
How did you get that? I mean, did they reach out to Ray Chew?
They did.
Someone recommend Ray Chew?
Yeah, they did. I'd worked with the director Glenn Weiss before, and I'd also worked on the Democratic National Convention.
Okay.
And so that set up that.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, here you are putting this thing together, first Black president of the United States, and he's hands-on. I'm sure that surprised you, but he was involved.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It was invigorating, and I was certainly at that time in my career, I'm always on a really good path and stride, and I knew, the professionalism of how to approach things and making sure, delivery was excellent and everything that it needed to be. But even in those situations, you have unforeseen moments. So you have or things that you can't necessarily foresee. You have Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is an X factor in a lot of things, and I think that's by his personal design. And I'll share a moment with you. We had rehearsed the moment with Stevie and Sting, and that was earlier during the day. But when we got into the actual moment, this is live TV, and so I think the act before Stevie Wonder was Mary J. or whoever it was. And so the timing is such that as soon as that act ends, we have 3 minutes to set up and go into the next act. And so what happened was that Mary J finished, and then then immediately the technical crew, excuse me, my God. So Mary J finished, and immediately the technical crew is setting up, putting Stevie's keyboard out there and getting everything ready. Everybody's scrambling around. I'm preparing my notes, talking to my team. And then Stevie says, and it's very loud and noisy because you have a big live crowd. And Stevie, he motions to me to come over or have somebody come over, bring me over. And he says, Ray, I'm gonna do my best, Stevie. He says, Ray, I think I want I want to change the ending. I was like, change the ending, And so what do you tell Stevie? No, you can't change the ending. You just Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so now I'm scrambling around trying to figure out, so change it to what, Steve? He says, yeah, I want to do set up to that pap. I was like, okay, could you give it to me again? Set up to that pap. Okay, cool. Let me set up to that pap. Okay. And that's it, Stevie. Okay, cool. Now we're already we're about 1 minute to go.
Wait. What does that even mean?
Exactly. What does that even mean? It means whatever Stevie wants it to mean. He wanted to change the ending to something other than what we had rehearsed.
Yeah.
And so he was verbally dictating it to me, and I was trying to make sure I kind of made sure I locked it in. And then I was able to go back to my team with 40 seconds to go and tell them a new ending. And it's a submission of excellence in the moment to see whether or not you still hit that 3-point shot.
That's part of your craft.
That's right.
That's the level that you're at. And believe me, I know, because I officiated the wedding of his daughter. And that was a treat. Because before I could finish my officiation, he wanted to change the ending. He had something to say, right? So he's in the middle of the floor and everything is set up. And he just went into, I'm not going to tell you what he said, because he said, excuse me and God forgive me. And then he just went into his own thing, basically telling his daughter and son-in-law, don't mess it up.
Okay.
He didn't say that, but that was the idea. But the ability to react at moments like that speak of the level of professionalism and the level at which you exact your craft.
Yeah. Well, it's also, the preparation, again, with the opportunity, preparation, and all these wonderful things mixed in. But it's in that moment that you have, and I liken it to high-end sports again, professional sports. When it's time to hit the 3-point, there's only one time to do that, right? And you have to. So the analogy I give my team when we're preparing, I said, well, everything we do has to be the winning shot, has to be a home run, has to be a touchdown. There's nothing less. So when Stevie said we need to change the ending, we have one shot to get that right. It's live TV. We're not doing it again. So everybody make sure you hear me and hear me right. I'm talking to them on on everybody's in ears. And I'm saying, make sure you get it. It's ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, okay? And make sure you get it.
What was the most challenging experience that you've had in your career?
Well, I would say different shows have their different challenges. And I would say I would share it again. The most challenging time was, the rebuild, and that was also the one of the most rewarding times. Where I felt God's hand, building my life brick by brick. Oh my goodness, where I felt God's hand building my life brick by brick and molding and shaping me and shaping my character. To where I felt like, okay, as I'm even watching myself and watching his work, I'm like, he's doing a pretty good job, I think I like this, this version of me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And that was around the time where I started at the Apollo. and at the Apollo. So a lot of people know me as the Apollo guy, but of course, there was a lot of me before that in a lot of my life. When my years at the Apollo was right when I was rebuilding my life and systems. And so it was right in that building that was it's such a challenging enterprise. You have all the history of the Apollo that is always in focus while you're doing whatever you're doing. You have to know that the wonderful spirits of Ella, James Brown, and all these great artists are there on that very same stage, and here you are. And then the show that we were doing, Showtime at the Apollo, where we have the live audience who are prepared and empowered to, if they don't like something, they will boo you off
They will
that
let
stage.
you know.
Oh, they sure will. Yeah.
So, how did that relate to the next step in your career?
Well, that brought me to that. Right in that time, it brought me to the place where I was able to analyze my own systems, see where it is that I felt I really wanted to go with my career and my life, and also feel the hand of God guiding me and sometimes pushing me and sometimes pulling me back a little bit. But I will say that, my testimony is real because that's what happened to me, that I could feel these things. I could feel him saying, hey, slow it down. And then sometimes, hey, you're not moving fast enough.
So there was a greater awareness of a divine hand in your life. You felt a sense of purpose and meaning to what you do and where you were experiencing the use of your gift. But there is another factor. A lovely lady that you've been married to for some time.
25, 26 years.
26
Wow.
years. Make sure you get that right.
That's right.
She'll be watching.
That's why I said 25, 26.
You cover yourself. I get it.
Let me see, hold on. 97. I think it's 26 years. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. We'll leave it right there. But Vivian Chu is a powerhouse in her own right, very accomplished woman. And how did you guys link up?
Vivian Chu, my journey with Vivian Chu started when we met in the 80s. And she was a young executive at ASCAP. And I was a session musician, palling around doing what I do. And I always thought she was beautiful, but she was involved with somebody else. I was involved with somebody else. And then, so that's when we first met. Later on in years, and it was a big gap that we hadn't seen each other in a while. And she was very successful, winning Grammys as an executive and all kinds of wonderful things. And then right at the time of my years at the Apollo, I recorded an album called Blue Crystal, and then she, as a matter of fact, I'm going to credit one of the wonderful people in your system, Raina Bundy. Raina Bundy called me and said, "Hey, and Raina's been a friend for many years." Raina Bundy called me and said, "Hey, Vivian just experienced the loss of her mother, and maybe you want to reach out to her." And then the very next few months, I experienced the loss with my mother. And so then Vivian and I, got together and we kind of bonded in that kind of moment. And then one day, and really we didn't start dating right away. We just started as friends. And then one day we just said, "Hey, maybe I could take you on a date or something," and he said, "Okay." And then you go. And then it went pretty quick from there, I remember how we got, it was lightning speed from there.
It just happened. Next thing you know,
yeah.
You were a couple, but not just a married couple. You became a team.
Yeah.
Working together.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Well, that wasn't easy and it wasn't immediate. we were married and we operated professionally independently. So professionally, she was, she started her own company, Time Zone International, and I was doing what I was doing. Oh my goodness. Professionally, she had started her own company, Time Zone International.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start again. Professionally, she started her own company, Time Zone International, and I was doing what I was doing as a musician at the Apollo and broadening my horizon, starting to work at BT and do all these other kinds of TV shows. And when we got married, we were in a household and we would pass each other by, we little home, home office, and we both would work late. I'd say, I'll see you upstairs. It's 3 a.m, and so finally there was one or two occasions where she called me and said, "Hey, listen, I need you to put something together for this event that I'm doing." I said, "Okay, all right. So now I'm working for you." I was like, "Cool, that's fine with me." And then we started doing a few more of those, and then we started producing things together, and that started our journey as a couple in production with our company, True Entertainment. And from there, we started doing a lot more things and getting annual events that we were producing, and of course, leading us to our years.
You guys locked in with Carnegie Hall, and actually, you're the gateway if you're going to do something around gospel music and things of that nature. Carnegie has had great confidence in you and what you and Vivian have been able to achieve. Talk about the event that we did together.
That was wonderful. And so the event was called the Night of Inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And Carnegie Hall empowered us to produce and curate this event. They gave us the mantle. They gave us this wonderful open slate, and they believed in us as producers. And they said, "Go ahead and bring us a product and mold it and shape it." And what our vision was that we wanted to bring cultures together. We wanted to bring people together. So it's a multicultural event of inspirational music, and it is that includes sometimes spoken word and dance. But most of all, the backdrop has got a 64-piece orchestra and 150 multicultural mass choir. And we were very, very happy to have you, Pastor Bernard, as our co-producer in one of those occasions. And it was a really wonderful event. We have wonderful artists that range from B.B. Winans, Michael McDonald, Shirley Caesar, all the gospel greats, and we marry them with people from secular and music, and it's a wonderful, enriching event. Most of all, that I enjoy conducting and arranging the music is that I get to look out into this wonderful quilt of an audience that we helped build for Carnegie Hall. When I say help build it, I had attended many of the events before that, and they had a monotone audience. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And they read the writings on the wall during that period of time and said, we need to diversify not only what happens on stage, but what the patronage looks like. Mm-hmm. And so the Night of Inspiration that we produced, that you co-produced with us, that was all of that.
Yeah. And we had the grace, Felicia Rashad was there, and it was amazing the interaction as we moved from segment to segment between the audience and what was happening on stage.
Yeah.
It was an incredible symphony of people experiencing each other, as well as the music, the choir, and all of that. Just absolutely amazing.
Thank you. And thank you for doing that with us. And that brings us to present day, which we're going to do the Night of Inspiration, December 14th. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is 2024, December 14th, Carnegie Hall. And this year, and I'm not going to be shy about reading this because I want to make sure I
get it right.
We're going to have Regina Bell, Shirley Caesar, Erica Campbell with her daughter, Krista Campbell, and her sister, Tina Campbell. So Erica and Tina are coming together. Corey Henry, Rasan Patterson, Kiera Sheard, and Kelly. And of course, Hezekiah Walker, Brian Courtney Wilson.
Mhm.
And we're going to do a tribute to the Winans. And this is going to be something very special. And so we're really looking forward to this year.
That is exciting. And I know that it's going to have the kind of impact that everything that you do has. That's quite a lineup. And that's December
14th, Saturday.
14th,
Right.
Carnegie Hall.
Correct.
So does it have a Christmas theme? How is it themed?
No, the theme is inspirational. Yeah, we've very specifically not tried to theme it within the time frame of the month.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make sure that it stood independently in spirit and not necessarily as a Christmas theme.
I'm sure Carnegie appreciates what you and these type of events bring to them as a brand. Have they responded to you in any way by saying, hey, this is what you guys are doing for us?
Yes, they have. They have by giving us the mantle to continue to do it. And they not only that, we produce other events there in different themes and styles. We've done sing-along events. We've done music to the 60s. We've done the music of Stevie Wonder. So we've produced a number of different types of events there. And I would say that it is a testament to the wonderful relationship we have that each time, they once they agree, they let us pretty much do what we need to do.
You develop a reputation for excellence and great content. And I can see why they've given you carte blanche. I will tell you, it was because of you guys that we were able to partner and have the full cooperation and support of Carnegie in what we plan to do. So again, thank you for that. And Vivian, of course, she is on it. She is the administrative on it person.
She is.
And she's an amazing woman and successful in her own right. As I said, let's go back to Dancing with the Stars. All right. What is that like? Because you continue with that, right?
Yeah.
What is that like? The experience in a program like that?
Dancing with the Stars is and I'm glad you asked me about what some of my challenging moments in TV are. That is very challenging. And what is challenging about that is that the time frame, we have a week, because every week there's a change in the artists and the contestants. And so we have 1 week to produce basically 10 to 15 songs it has to be very specific down to the millisecond.
Mm-hmm.
So the dance teams are guided by the dance professionals. So they are the ones who choreograph all the routines. These professional dancers, they have been contestant winners throughout the entire world. So they are very competitive, and they are very excellent, and they are very specific. So there are times where there are subtleties in a song that we do that most people would not pay attention to, and they'll hear us say, "Well, no, there's a little something like that," and they'll give a specific time at 1:03.2 in the time code, and I'm like, "Really?" And I'll have to go back and listen to that. Oh wow, I heard that little yeah, and for that they're doing some kind of little arm movement or something. I'm
Right.
So it took me. There was a learning curve. It took me about at least 2 seasons to really lock in how important that was, because all of those things are dance road signs to them. So they need all of that. And so it's very challenging, yeah.
So far, you've emphasized the time demand, the intensity and focus of your attention on what you're doing. But you're a married man. How do you and Vivian maintain the health of your relationship?
That's a challenge.
And
I say
that's the
that
other challenge.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But I say that in the most positive way because, she and I both recognize that, and we're both. And I think once you recognize that there's something that is challenging, you address it before it becomes a problem or an issue or a problem that becomes something that's out of pocket. She and I both take the approach that we need to find the time and energy to dedicate to each other, whether it be in a day, be it an hour, and whether it be 1 or 2 hours in a month, or we can, do 3 or 4 or 30 times, whatever it has to be. We recognize that these are special moments that we have to dedicate to each other.
But that requires a level of maturity. The fact that you're talking about scheduling time to maintain the health of your marriage and your relationship, because some women don't like the idea of being scheduled. They want it to just be free and open. What do you mean, I'm in your calendar? What do you mean by that? But you both understand, because of the demands of your time, that for each of you, the need to do that. And sometimes you have to preempt something that you've scheduled in order to do something else. So there's a value judgment. And how have you worked through that?
Well, sometimes she puts me in her calendar, and then sometimes I put her in my calendar. And like I said, sometimes those things have to change. And it took years for us to mature as a couple and to understand that it's okay. I'll be back, I'll be back next week, or we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up because we know that the love that we have for each other is going to be the river that flows through the entire thing, and our relationship is strong enough to handle that.
Yeah. And there's no one size fits all for couples. It depends on the context, depends on the experience, the demand. But you try to develop some type of work rest rhythm and include quality time, because it's less about the amount of time. It's more about the quality of time that you spend with each other when you schedule. And that's not easy. It requires discipline. And like you said, it requires a degree of maturity.
Yeah. It's simple things that seem simple. Like we're binge watching a series right now. And so that's, now we're kind of like, we're both into watching this and having fun. And then sometimes we'll just go out and have a dinner. And then other times it's like, hey, I'm in office. She's in office to 2 a.m, or I'm in the studio to 5 or 6 a.m. And so, those, that's just the dynamic of our relationship.
It also requires a level of trust and security in the relationship. Otherwise, it can destabilize the relationship because of the realities that you have to deal with by virtue of your work. So what's in the future for you? I mean, you're not slowing down.
No. As a matter of fact, I am doing my legacy album right now. It's a Ray Chu and Friends styled album inspired by Quincy Jones and all of his years. And he was a mentor and friend to me. And I loved all the way he did those albums, the collaborations and the introduction to new artists. And I will be doing that same thing. I have wonderful collaborations on the project I'm doing now. I'll have a summer record out called Jam and Party that is going to be a summer rocker. It's going to feature Kid Capri, Stephanie Mills, Dougie Fresh, and MC Light. And so this is my summer record, and then that will start the flow with the rest of the album. I have collaborations with Patty Austin, Lisa Fisher, Marcus Miller, and we're gonna have and I'll be introducing 2 wonderful new artists, one male and one female, two young artists that have not been heard before, and they're going to be under my guidance and my tutelage, and I'm going to introduce them to the rest of the world.
So you notice he's not telling us the names of these young artists. He's just saying two, which means we have to tune in
Absolutely.
and watch as you develop this. But you're philanthropic. I mean, you have a heart for musicians, individuals that have gone through the things that you've gone through. You understand what they're faced with. And you did something special to raise money for musicians. Tell us about that.
I did. When the pandemic hit, there were a lot of musicians that were immediately out of work, because they couldn't perform and they couldn't, there was a lot they couldn't do. One particular experience inspired me to really move, and that was that a friend of mine was traveling, doing a jazz tour in Europe. And when the pandemic hit, they froze the tour and they didn't allow him to fly back. And basically, a lot of musicians kind of go from check to check and hand to mouth. And in about a week, he was like, hey, I ain't got no money. And he didn't have any money. He didn't have anywhere to stay. They wouldn't let him just stay at the hotel. And he sent an SOS back. And I was like, wow, we got to do something. So yeah, we helped in that. But I said the bigger picture was that musicians, these are my rank and file brothers and sisters, and musicians and singers, they need something. So what I did was I did a series of events that we recorded to raise money for the musicians. And so I collaborated with George Clinton, Yonla Van Zant, Chick Corea. Wow, we had a Dionne Warwick. And so we raised thousands and thousands of dollars, and we put it in the portal so that they could get the money directly. That was important to me, that it didn't go through a lot of levels of bureaucracy and administration. And by the time you do all that, it's a lot less.
Very little left after the administrative
So no,
cost,
they got the money directly and immediately. So that was important.
Was that the first of other opportunities that you're
Well,
going
it was
to take to do
during
something?
we also have our philanthropic arm called Power to Inspire. And the mission of Power to Inspire is to bridge the gap between those who have had or education, music education, and those who want to bring it into the professional realms. And so we continue to do that, because we work with other organizations who focus on education. We're focused on the realities of what do I do after I have a degree from Berkeley College? How do I make that? How do I get that into a system? And what we do is we mentor and we focus on the very specifics of what needs to happen. And we do like what was done with me, and we hand walk them into the industry.
Do you share your moral compass with these individuals?
I do. But I never browbeat that over anybody. I never, I never want to sling it at anybody. But if the conversation comes up again, well, I have to tell you my testimony, or sometimes it's an offering. I'll share some of these things because I think it depends on if somebody's ready to hear it or consume it. And if they are, then I'll share it with them.
I think that's important. And I like the way you put it. It's not something that you're looking to impose on them, but we all need an anchor for our soul, especially in this particular industry that you're in. There's so many things that can lead you in a direction that's self-destructive, that doesn't tend towards human flourishing. It tends towards desolation. And they need models like you, like Vivian, who show how you can have an anchor of faith and at the same time thrive in this industry. reach incredible heights, do incredible things, give back. And we need those models, especially those who are aspiring musicians. They need those models. So congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And commendations to
Thank
what you
you.
do.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you had the opportunity to work with an artist, composer, writer, musician that is no longer with us, who would that individual be?
That would be Miles Davis.
Miles.
And because I just his, well, not only his body of work, but what he meant to not only the jazz idiom, but American music. And I would have loved to have an opportunity to play with him. And I also want to cite somebody who's actually still alive, but not as active. Celine Dion.
Oh.
Well, I just love her. All right.
Why? What is it about her?
Well, first, I loved her spirit and her voice. And she may not be quite the same Celine Dion as, she was 20 years ago, but she is still Celine. And I would have, and there still may be an opportunity, Celine, if you're watching it. But yeah, Celine Dion.
You have to have a uniqueness that separates you from the pack. Celine Dion, you know when you're hearing Celine Dion. You know when you're hearing Dionne Warwick. Do we know when we're hearing Ray Chu?
You will. When I put this record out, everything is going to be my signature. I'm writing all of the songs, all the collaborations, I'm producing, and wonderful pieces of art. And I specifically waited until this time in my life to do this because I think over specifically the last 20 years, I've been I've been hammering at it because what I felt like, I felt I owed it to myself because there was some years that I didn't quite do it like that. So I said, when I get that opportunity and God gives me a chance on the rebuild, I'm not missing a step. I'm not going to do less. I'm going to do more. I'm going to do everything I can. And so right now, God did tap me on my shoulder, and it was in January. And he said to me, you're doing well, but I got something for you. And he says, and there's some music I want you to do. And very specific. It was so direct that he woke me up in the middle of the night with song in my head. And Vivian's experienced this with me now, so she's used to it. I'll just get up and go downstairs to my studio and start working. And it was one night. It started. I got up at about 3:30, and 12 noon. I'm still at it. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got to start doing this." And then I said, "Okay, you know what? I think it's time for me to do my legacy album."
Yeah,
and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm inspired by it because. Up to this point in my life, I haven't really written. I did 2 books, but haven't really written to express and articulate my own craft of teaching the way I've desired to. And I'm in that particular season in my life where that's the objective. We're the aggregate of all of the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, relationships, and experiences we've had in life.
Yeah.
So very valuable. And now to give back in that way, you inspire me, and stay inspired because I want to hear this piece. I want to experience the total summary of Ray Chu.
Yeah.
And an incredible journey in the industry.
And that's exactly the title of my album is called My Journey.
Wow.
My Journey. That's it.
It's been great having you on the program. Just a rich life, an incredible journey. Kudos to Vivian, the role that she's played. I understand. I've got a wife who stayed with me and encouraged me, and and she's her own person as well. But thank you for sharing, man. Thank you for just opening your heart and mind, your life, and your journey with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, our listeners. I am thrilled, as I always am, that you took the time to join us today. And of course, if you like what you heard, please subscribe and share. We'll be back with another brilliant, illustrious individual that we're going to have a great conversation with right here on the A.R. Bernard Show. Till next time, God bless.